Eyes of Minnesota sports flowing in their veins. Mackey and Judd on Score North and ScoreNorth.com.
Think you like football? Bill Belichick doesn't just like football. He loves football.
They're all good. Yeah, they're all good. So, yeah, every one of them. Treadwell, Thielen, Diggs, Rudolph, the backs, quarterback. They can pick. They're all good.
Football! Football! Yeah! Football! Gotta eat!
Treadwell was the first guy.
Treadwell.
Rudolph. Treadwell. Who are the backs? The back was Dalvin Cook. He disrespected. He mentions Laquan Treadwell, but not Dalvin Cook.
Oh, I think they were asking about the receiving game. No,
he said the backs too at the end. He just named.
Well, I think he meant as far as could catch. Because I think they asked him about
Dalvin Cook and catch better than
No,
Treadwell.
I'm not. I'm just saying. I think Billy. I don't think Billy's being disrespectful. Far be it from Bill to be disrespectful when he's complimenting Laquan Treadwell.
He should just, instead of saying names, he should just list the uniform numbers. Oh, they're all good.
He would if he
19,
could. He would if he could.
18.
11.
Ex-wide receiver.
Boys, we're going to get into later in the show the new era of Vikings football and what we're most excited for. And some who gets it, who doesn't. But I think we should, I don't know if it's like breaking news. It's more just like developing news here. We're going to lead the show with. All right, the Vikings, as of last night / this morning, have now been linked via reports to 4 defensive coordinator candidates. Now, I believe they've officially interviewed. I think Anthony Weaver, the Ravens defensive line coach, has officially interviewed. The others are they've either had conversations or feelers. And then there's the question of they can't officially announce the Kevin O'Connell hire, and he's also preparing for a Super Bowl. So is he taking time out of his preparation against the Bengals to be on these calls? Is it Kwesi that's doing these calls? We don't know a lot of details, but here are the 4 defensive coordinator candidates, and we can kind of dive into some of these. Mike Pettine, who spent last season as a senior defensive assistant with the Chicago Bears. He's been a defensive coordinator in Green Bay, Buffalo, the Jets, head coach in Cleveland for a couple years. You got Anthony Weaver, who is the Ravens defensive line coach. He was also the Houston Texans defensive coordinator in 2020, which was kind of a disaster. But he was also J.J. Watt's defensive line coach for 5 years before that. Mm-hmm. Aubrey Pleasant, who spent some time with the Rams defense as a cornerbacks coach. I'm assuming that's how him and Kevin O'Connell know each other the closest. And most recently, he was, or still is, I guess, the Lions defensive backs coach. And then Don Wink Martindale, recently dismissed from Baltimore, 58-year-old grizzled defensive coordinator for the Ravens. He has had a conversation with the Vikings. And what do all 4 of these guys have in common, despite their different ages and backgrounds? They all have been very much immersed in their careers in 3-4 defenses.
Football.
I'll hit you with that one here. 3-4 defense.
3-4.
Now we in our discussion with resident Mackey and Judd historian Patrick Royce, and then you actually wound up doing the Google search work on this, but apparently it's been almost 40 years, 1985.
Yep, Bud
since the Vikings ran a 3-4 defense.
First year back after Steckel. Yep, and it looks like it was a short-lived experiment.
And then they brought Jerry Burns in as the head coach, right? So what do you make of this? If the Vikings decide, I mean, and based on these interviews, I'm sure. And by the way, you don't run 3-4 the whole game. A lot of base defenses are only run like 30% of the snaps because then you're in nickel dime, different multiple fronts, as they say. But if they switch to a 3-4 base defense, what do you guys make of that?
Well, I call it a look, first of all, like a 3-4 look. That's what I like to call it. When I'm breaking down the film, when I'm talking football, when I am just pounding surly beers and talking defense, I say 3-4 look.
See, I call it a 3-4 front myself.
Well, and you know what? You're right too. And sometimes I like to say, but what if you put 2 guys up front? So it's a 2-man look up front, or perhaps. One man up front.
I'm glad you brought this up because I'll say this as I said it to Royce. So Mike Pettine, who his first rise to fame was as Rex Ryan's defensive coordinator in New York with the Jets when the Jets were actually an awesome football team for a few years and the best defense in the NFL. So Rex and Mike Pettine were running the Jets defense, and it was a 3-4 base. But in 2012, which was Mike Pettine's last year as Jets defensive coordinator, I think then he went to Buffalo maybe with Rex Ryan the next year. But the Jets ran a 1-3-7 defense on 1/5 of the defensive snaps that year.
Football.
Mercy.
Which is 1 down lineman, 3 usually linebackers, I would presume, and then 7 defensive backs or safety linebacker hybrids of some kind.
You don't know where anyone's going. You don't know whether they're coming or going.
I want to see someone run the 0-11 defense. Just no down linemen, all defensive backs. Just
hybrid
circulating.
defenses, different looks, permeations. I mean, just keep it coming. So here's my thought, though, because I sort of like this. I like it because of this. Again, it adds to what is going to be months of intrigue going into training camp, right? Like, how are things going to shake out? What's the roster going to look like? Certainly, if you go to a 3-4 base look, you're talking about some guys who will be happy, overjoyed perhaps, and some who will say, I don't play a 3-4 defense. Here's the one player that I will throw out that's the wild card in this, but I could see him being a nightmare. He's already, when healthy, a nightmare, but more so. Danielle Hunter.
Absolutely.
Think
J.J. Watt, Houston prime.
Standing up, and don't forget. So when the first time that the Vikings realized that they had something special there was they were preparing for a game. I think it was in Danielle's rookie season at Winter Park. They're preparing for a game, and Danielle Hunter was the scout team DeMarcus Ware, I believe. I think it was. And because that position that Danielle was imitating stood up, he did, and he looked great. And Zim, who back then had his defensive fastball, said to the coaching staff, why don't we have him do that more? And they're like, well, because and he's like, no, just allow him to basically line up like he's comfortable. So imagine him potentially, guys, in a 3-4, healthy. Sometimes he stands up, perhaps at different times you move him. I'm just saying I would love to see that. I think it could be an absolute, he could be a beast, and trying to game plan for that, at least for a year or so, would be really difficult.
Yeah. I mean, so my mind goes 2 places. Number one, I think, Danielle Hunter could, he already thrives. I think he would thrive in any defense, but he might thrive even more in this type of a defense. And, but then my mind, I guess I think also about the safeties. The Vikings have 3 safeties, and so some of these exotic looks that Mike Pettine defenses have used in the past, and we don't know a lot about Aubrey Pleasant and Anthony Weaver specifically, but like Don Martindale used a lot of what they call multiple fronts and looks in Baltimore. Could you get creative? Like Cam Bynum was basically relegated to, he's the 3rd safety, and Xavier Woods technically isn't under contract, so he might just be gone anyways. So it might just be that maybe Harrison Smith and Cam Bynum are the safeties in 2022, but I hate the fact that the Vikings basically said, well, Cam Bynum looked pretty good filling in, but no, there's nowhere to play him, so I guess he just doesn't play anymore. Can you get a little bit more creative, stemming from a 3-4 and then coming up with some different looks that maybe are more dime looks where you include an extra defensive back? And that's right, I'm talking dime defenses here.
Big nickel, too. Don't forget.
There's big nickel and big dime.
Big nickel.
Exactly.
J-Ron Curse played in it. No, I mean, there is. I mean, you want to break her down. Defensive fronts and football and packages on defense. Oh my God.
Yes. So there's a lot of like creative things you could do if you're open to a 3-4 base and then the trickle down effect into your sub packages, right? Into your nickel dimes. Could you get an extra defensive back involved in some of those, right? But the other place I go is I feel like your linebacker situation is kind of screwed right now. You don't have a lot of depth at linebacker. Eric Kendricks, I don't know that he would be a great 3-4 linebacker. He's also 30 years old now. Anthony Barr would have been fascinating to watch in a 3-4 defense, but he is not under contract for next year. They have a lot of voided dead money tied up in Anthony Barr for next year, like $9 or $10 million. He's also turning 30 years old. So I would have loved to have seen this 2 or 3 years ago or further back with Anthony Barr in his prime. That would have been fun. But that ship has kind of sailed, and he's no longer on the roster now that this season is over. Agreed. So I worry that, and maybe this is all part of Mission 2023. If they switch to a 3-4 defense, it means probably retooling most of that defense and saying goodbye to either Michael Pierce or Dalvin Tomlinson, right? So I don't know, man.
That middle man, big fat man anchoring in the middle, just a stout run.
Football.
I mean, Brady Jackson, you're just running right into him.
Some more background on these guys here. So Mike Pettine, we already talked about him at length. Rex Ryan's school of mixing up looks, a lot of exotic looks that all sort of stem from a 3-4 base defense. Anthony Weaver has been the Ravens defensive line coach. He was the Houston Texans defensive coordinator in 2020 when they were one of the worst defenses in the NFL. Some of that was like J.J. Watt getting old and hurt, and the chemistry on that team just being like they were literally trying to get Bill O'Brien fired. That team was in 2020. But he was J.J. Watt's defensive line coach for 5 years before that. He did run a 3-4 base defense when he was the coordinator in Houston. Aubrey Pleasant, Lions defensive backs coach now. He was the Rams cornerbacks coach for 4 years. He would be a first-time defensive coordinator. He's the only first-time defensive coordinator on this list. The Lions ran a 3-4 base defense last year, and the Rams also have run a 3-4 base defense, and then Don Wink Martindale. So what direction do you think? Like, do you think Kevin O'Connell is likely to go old, grizzled, experienced veteran like a Martindale or a Pettine? Or do you think he'll go younger, newer, hey, let's get a bunch of dudes in their 30s and 40s in here to collaborate and build this thing for the next 3 to 5 years?
I'm intrigued by that angle. Like at this point in time, especially if you basically say, hey, we're going to be as competitive as we can possibly be in 22, but 23 is when we're really going to start to run more. That being said, my sense is with a guy who is 36 as the coach, with a guy who is 40 as the GM, and probably a lot of younger guys overall on the coaching staff, my sense has been that I think they're going to go with more of a veteran DC who has probably been a head coach as well. It's not going to excite folks, but like if I were to take the list, and to your point, Phil, we don't know a ton about these guys, but I was to try and do a handicapping of the candidates, I think I'd put Pettine first. I'm not saying I personally think that's great, but he's got the resume that would speak to bringing experience to a position that's important. That's not the strength necessarily of the coach for sure, because Kevin O'Connell's an offensive guy. And there would be some ability to fall back on Pettine's experience as a coach as well. So that's why I think I'd put him as the favorite. That being said, Aubrey Pleasant intrigues me. He's young. It sounds like he's very smart. He's done a good job. He actually, so a Rams executive left the Rams to take the Lions GM job last year, and he brought like 3 or 4 people with him. And Pleasant was one of the guys that he handpicked, I think, to bring. Mm-hmm. So there was no problem for Pleasant with the Rams. But yeah, the name Mike Pettine's not going to do a lot for people, but I'm not going to be shocked if it's a guy like that gets the job.
See, how do you guys feel that Packer fans would love if Mike Pettine was the Vikings defensive coordinator? They ran Dom Capers out of town, and then they ran Mike.
And we got Dom Capers too.
And we got Dom Capers.
Senior
consultant. Still a senior consultant?
No, he was gone
just a year.
Yeah,
that was a weird.
But I think what's interesting about Pleasant is, so he was the DB's coach, but also the passing game coordinator. And I think sometimes we get super obsessed when we're looking at like potential head coaches and whatnot, where we say, well, he's a defensive guy. He knows nothing about offense, where I think there's like this evolution that's more happening on both sides of the football, where you have a guy like Pleasant who, yeah, I mean, he's known for working with defensive backs. I saw him, there was a clip of him yesterday just absolutely reaming into a cornerback last year for the Lions, but he's also the passing game coordinator. And I think just because someone has a defensive background, that doesn't mean they can't implement offensive game plans because they know the other side of the football. And I feel like Pleasant's kind of evolution into that really is kind of this new mold and probably what Kevin O'Connell and the new Vikings kind of ownership wants to have. They want more collaborative people. What's more collaborative than having a guy who knows offense and defense on both sides of the ball?
So I was going to ask about that because there's a couple of these guys where it's like their main job is secondary coach, in this case for Aubrey Pleasant, or cornerbacks coach. And I guess I took that to mean that he was the defensive pass game coordinator.
Could be.
Is he the offensive pass game? I literally have no idea.
No,
It says
I think you're right, Phil.
he's the defensive pass game coordinator.
Yes, he like works. This league now gives out titles like candy. So like I think it used to be, hey, you coach defensive backs, and therefore we're going to try and stop the opponent's passing game. And I think now they're like, we're going to give you more titles. So yes, I think that when we see that attached to a guy, it means that he is actually defensive backs coach, and he works on trying to stop the pass of the opposing team.
Yeah.
So
on Mike Pettine, real quick here, there's a very interesting distinction here that I think is important. Well, I think two of them. Number one, anything that happened with the Jets, you can't give him full credit for, because Rex Ryan was the head coach, and Rex Ryan's one of the greatest defensive coaches in my lifetime of football.
Love
those Ravens
looks.
Defenses. Yeah,
those looks are Rex Ryan.
So he only gets
Right.
some credit. He was a Rex Ryan protege, but you can't give him all that credit. And his team's performance on defense has never lived up to what it was like the first 2 or 3 years in New York with the Jets. As far as score, they had the number 1 scoring defense in 2009, the number 3 yardage defense in 2010. His defenses, the other distinction, are much better against the pass than against the run. And that's what a lot of Packer fans would tell you, too, that like those Green Bay teams would get. And look, Dalvin Cook gashed the Packers between 2018 and 20 a few times, too. You know, the Packers' rush defenses were outside the top 20 in both 2018 and 19. But Mike Pettine's past defenses in terms of yardage, for the 10 or 11 years he's been a coordinator, has been in the top 12 all but 2 years. And the only 2 exceptions were they were 14th in 2019 and 22nd in Cleveland in 2015. So if you want a good pass defense, Mike Pettine's probably your guy. But there's a lot of gaping holes in the run game defensively with a lot of these Mike Pettine defenses.
Mike Pettine's also somewhat, if you're O'Connell and Kwesi, he's somewhat safe because he did a podium session early in his time as the Packers DC, where he basically said, I never want to be a head coach again. I didn't enjoy it. It was a disaster. It was Cleveland, so it's not all his fault, but he essentially said, I want to coordinate defenses back then. So like, and I'm not saying this is not why I would personally hire him. I'm just trying to say that if you're trying to keep the peace and you don't want a guy who says, I was a coach once and I'm going to be a coach again, screw you, Kevin O'Connell, he's safe. I'm with Dex though. The Pleasant, depending on your direction at this point in time, I wouldn't be against that one. At some point in time, my guess is that they're going to say we need to have some veteran coaching stability here, and like Mike Pettine fits the bill.
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out even how many starters the Vikings have under contract next year. It's like Barr's not under contract, Patrick Peterson's not under contract, Xavier Woods,
but Phil, you're
under contract.
You just hit on, I think, the most important discussion, which is as fans and in our business, we need to get through our heads that this team, personnel-wise, and more importantly, scheme-wise, is going to change a ton of things.
Yeah.
So like when we're talking about, what guys might get cut or traded, it's also going to come down to what's your plan. Because there might be some guys who say, I want out now. Like I don't want to play. I'm a 4-3 guy, right? Like I
could see Kendrick saying that.
Yeah. So
love
now
the Vikings. Thank you so much. I'll see you at the Ring of Honor ceremony, guys. I'm 30.
Yes.
I want to go play some 4-3 defense and finish out the last 3 years of my career. Right.
Exactly right. And so now it's not this whole, oh my God, they cut Kendricks or traded him. I can't believe it. He actually didn't fit. And so, like, if you go through defensively, there is no question going to be some guys who, if you switch your system and schematics dramatically, are going to say, that doesn't fit what makes me successful.
Yeah. Yeah. So, Breland, not under contract because they cut him. Patrick Peterson. I mean, they're literally looking for Harrison Smith's under contract. That could change too. He's 32 years old, and he's one of the biggest cap hits right now for the Vikings. And Cam Dantzler is under contract, just going through the secondary
and
here.
you have to
Mackenzie
find
Alexander. I think Mackenzie Alexander is under for 1
No,
more
I thought he
year.
said a 1 year. I thought he came back on a 1 year deal.
So in that case, then you literally have one. Well, you have one starting cornerback and one starting safety in Harrison Smith. Cam Bynum could also be a starting safety.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got kind of a blank canvas, but you're $12 million over the cap here too. These are all the things when we talk about Kirk and all this stuff. It's like if they bring a new scheme in and they've got cap issues, all of these are reasons why they would take a step back purposefully in 2022. So I think it's our duty on Mackey and Judd and Purple Daily to just paint the possibility. They might take 2022 as a reset, and the fact that they're looking at 3-4 defensive coordinators screams even more loudly that changes are on the way here at some point in the next 2 months.
By the way, the Giants are hiring Wink Martindale to be their defensive coordinator.
Okay,
that literally
so take
just
him.
came down as we're recording from Adam Schefter.
Oh man, he would have been
Take
fun.
him.
Wink.
Crusty old
Wink Martindale.
game show host, Wink Martindale.
The Wink formation. That'd be awesome.
Wink Martin. He should have like a little game show microphone instead of the headset. Just walking
Just
around.
the old
Hi, guys,
school like
it's,
Gene Shalit,
Who?
Rayburn. They're guys who used to host Match Game, I believe, right?
It's probably
Gene
before Dex and I.
Yeah, I only
We
know
grew up
Gene
on
Shalit.
Bob.
it most
You got to start
definitely
at Bob Barker and move
Sam
forward.
Barker.
for
It most
Dex.
Thank you.
definitely is. It most definitely is. The 70s, you little card
Pet
sharks.
spayed
Oh,
or
man,
neutered?
there's some great old.
Get your pets
Pet
spayed,
spayed
or
or neutered?
He said that after every episode, right?
After every episode.
It's hilarious.
My dementia grandfather loved him some Bob Barker.
And that was in the 80s. Like he was a man ahead of his time. Bob Barker was.
Oh, and the calling for animals to be spayed or neutered.
Yes, in his caring about pets.
Bunch of horny cats running around in the 60s and 70s. Fix it.
Didn't worry about it. But anyway, they are now going to be in a position once O'Connell and the staff is all in place where you are going to make decisions probably roster-wise based solely on what your intentions are.
Yeah. Not based on what the roster is in some
Right.
cases. I think they're...
Because Zim liked to do it.
Yeah. All right. Every Tuesday, we also go through who gets it, who doesn't here on the show. Presented by our friends at Federated Mutual Insurance Company. They're all about risk management and helping you maximize the success of your likely already awesome business. So check them out at federatedinsurance.com and find out all the different tools and resources that they can implement and apply to your business. Federatedinsurance.com. And remember, at Federated, it's our business to protect yours. As I'm talking about Federated here, our guy Wade Phillips, legendary defensive coordinator, son of bum, is still tweeting at people like in the NFL media sphere. He's tweeting.
But is he responding to you?
I have not DM'd him yet.
Oh,
I'll send him a
Gotta
DM
send that
today.
today, man. We got
I'll
to get
send him
him
a-
on.
I'll send him a DM today.
Say, why have you blocked?
Hey,
Declan
I'll say,
Goff
hey,
and
listen,
Yet?
no, we're not going to bring that up because then he'll probably refuse to come on the show.
Yeah.
I don't
Oh,
want him
not
to
till
know
he's
that
on.
he's going
And
to
then
think
once
it's
he's
gonna be
on, I'm going to ask him
contentious.
why did you block me?
I'm sure he remembers exactly why he blocked Jade Zolgad.
I think it was some
And
mass
Dex
blocking
tweets 12 years ago.
No, I think it's
three
a
high
mass-
lifes in.
thing. The mass blocking.
Well, this is what happened with Samantha Ponder back in the day. I never once ever tweeted at her or
got
took
mass
shots at her or
blocked.
anything, but I would frequently tweet about Christian Ponder, and I'm pretty sure she had a feed of just Christian Ponder, like a search feed, and she just went on a blocking rampage. Anyone that was saying anything negative about her quarterback husband. Oh, all right, you guys got some who gets it, who doesn't?
Yeah.
Who doesn't get it? Samantha Ponder. Stop searching your family's name on
In
Twitter.
12 years, I think
Much healthier.
that you guys should both make up and play nice. 12 years.
I'll start with the who gets it. How about that? I will go with the Minnesota Wild's organization. Not only are they one of the best teams in the NHL right now, but The Athletic has been slowly dropping their prospect pool rankings. They've been teasing one each day. We got into the top 10 last week, and the Wild still weren't on the list, meaning they'd be in the top 10. We got through yesterday, and the fourth one was released, and the Wild still haven't been named. So today, at number 3, The Minnesota Wild have the 3rd best prospect pool in the entire NHL. So to go along with their amazing record, their prospect pool is still very, very heavy. They rank Matt Boldy number 1, Marco Rossi number 2, Jesper Wallstedt, the goaltender they drafted in the most previous draft, who was the number 1 goalie available in the draft. The Wild were able to snag, I believe it's like the 20th pick in last year's draft. Not only are they a good team on the ice, but they have a prospect pool that's ready. And this is the most fun part about this, because everyone's excited that the prospect pool is built up. But now that it's built up, can you use some of these assets to potentially make you better at the trade deadline or down the road? And I'm curious how that plays out.
So that was my question. I mean, how I feel like with the Twins for all these years. And by the way, I saw a nugget that, like, I can't remember which publication came out with it, but the Twins have like the 23rd farm system now. So they're bad, and they have a bad farm system, and they haven't developed any pitching. What would you say you do here? But whenever the Twins had a good team and a good farm system, they were always super stingy about trading their number 3 prospect. Or, we can't trade Aaron Hicks. He's going to be our future center fielder. It's like, no, he's probably not. You should trade him. So how likely do you guys think the Wild are going to, in the next, let's say, 2 years, actually trade from their pool of draft picks and or young players to build a win-now team even stronger?
Judley?
I don't think they're going to touch the top 3 to 5 guys. I think after that, they will. Here's the thing with our friend Billy Guerin. Billy Guerin's going, I think he will make a trade, but he will not lose a trade badly. He will not give you 2 prospects. Like, he's going to, he's not going to go so big game hunting that he does something that he perceives to be dumb. That being said, I do think if the right opportunity presents itself, unlike the Twins, he will pull the trigger. The only thing that's a little bit dicey here that gets it to be a conversation that people don't have, and it involves right now both the Wild and the Wolves as Thursday's NBA trade deadline approaches, is the chemistry. So, like, you got to make damn sure that if you're going to plop a player in that room, that person fits too. You can't just be like, I mean, beware of the Hansel, which is, oh, we got Martin Hansel. It's going to be great. This is a great trade. Guy's just a dead ass. That's bad. That doesn't work. That submarines things. So do I think that Bill Guerin would trade prospects to improve his team right now? Absolutely. Do I think that he would make a trade that would cause people to scratch their heads? Absolutely not.
Yeah. Okay, I have kind of a similar line here, but for the other winter team in town. I've seen a couple stories here trying to find out who is reporting this. It looks like Michael Scotto of Hoops Hype. This came down like last night. That the Timberwolves are interested in trading for veteran Spurs forward and former Timberwolf Thaddeus Young. And I'm going to tell you, I think the Timberwolves front office here gets it. Because this is exactly the type of trade that they should be looking to make. A little, like, dip your toes in the trade water. Don't trade Jaden McDaniels. Don't go trading a bunch of... Certainly don't trade Pat Beverly. Yeah, just dip your toes in. So Thaddeus Young, he's 33 years old now. He used to be a phenomenal player with Philadelphia and even with the Timberwolves for a couple years. But he's a 33-year-old role player. He's played in 26 games. He has 1 start. So he really hasn't been a starter for, like, the last 3 seasons. And he's going to bring a nice blend of just all-around high basketball IQ. He can score a little bit. He can grab some rebounds. He's a passing big. And he can just bring some veteran presence. Just there's a little sprinkling
seasoning?
of, like,
Seasoning trade?
A little 12, 15 minutes a game. Don't upset anything that's happening right now. All right? So I like that the trade. I guess what I'm saying is I like that the trade discussion and fodder has gone from make a big splash for Ben Simmons to let's go get a little garlic over here, a little Thaddeus Young, and you can maybe sprinkle
meat
12 minutes
tenderizer.
in. That's where I'm at.
Yeah.
I like that.
Mm-hmm. Okay, who gets it? Who doesn't?
All right, I'm going to continue on the positive path of who gets it, and I'm going to tell you right now, the Super Bowl is on Sunday, so the season technically for the National Football League is not over, but the NFL offseason continues to get it because we have already in the last, I think, 48 hours now, like amidst all of the coaching hires and speculation and potential trades that might come up, we have now seen Tom Brady on his Sirius show, Let's Go, said basically open the door for, well, I'm retired now, but in 5 months, I mean, you never know. I mean, I might get bored. I mean, you never say never, right, Jim Gray? You never say never. And so there's just the door left ajar for TB12 to play in 2022, which, by the way, I'm not sure I agree with, but I love the speculation there. And then yesterday, I believe, story surfaced that Kyler Murray, the Cardinals' up-and-coming young, I think he's fairly dynamic quarterback, has scrubbed all of the Cardinals' stuff off his Instagram page.
So weird.
Social media, Kyler said the Cardinals are out, and nobody knows why exactly. I don't even care why. I love the fire that is, that especially in football and basketball, the offseason.
So it kind of feels like Tom Brady doesn't really want to retire.
He doesn't. You can tell. It's Farvinian.
But it's like, I'm sure his wife continues to say, okay, like, you're going to be healthy for like 5 more years. So, I mean, you're just going to play until you're 50? Like, how many Super Bowl rings do you need? Your kids are getting a little older.
She wants him to retire.
It's time to be a dad here and do some other things. And let's not stick around 1 year too long, the Judd Zulgad plan, and take a hit to the head or break your leg in half or something.
Yep.
So I see it from her perspective, but he doesn't. I don't think he wants to retire. I think he's kind of being forced into this thing.
You know, he's never. So I feel like she's being used as the scapegoat here, because she for a while now has basically said, "Are you done? Are you done?" And he's always like, "No, baby, I'm going back. I'm going back." I think this is a front to try to get away from the Bucs. I think that this is he won a Super Bowl. Things didn't go great. They went good. I'm just saying this is almost like Favre's play with the Jets, which was, I'll bide my time. That's cool. But then I'm going to get you.
Dude.
I wonder if Brady has another destination picked out. Go home to California. I don't know. But Gisele's
he's a Midwest guy at heart.
And Gisele's the scapegoat here. Like, I think she's being used as she's the bad guy, when the reality is this is a way to sever ties with Tampa Bay that's fairly, it's not seamless, but it's fairly effective, I think.
You know, we have Skyways.
Reckless speculation.
Okay, you know, it's cold, but you don't have.
All right.
You can fly your helicopter in on top of the Target Center, like Glenn Taylor does from Mankato. Does he ever do that? There is a helicopter pad on top of.
There is?
Target Center. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I don't
know if anyone ever uses it. I think Glenn Taylor gets a ride.
I don't trust the
from
roof
a
of that
chauffeur.
place. Don't be landing no helicopter on top of there when I'm in that building.
But he can pretty much skyway his way over to.
All right, what
US
say
Bank
you?
Stadium.
What say you, Tom? We find out that TB12 has made overtures to Kwesi. What say you about that?
Oh, do you even have to ask? Of course I'm in. Absolutely.
1 year,
Reckless speculation.
25 mil.
Trade Kirk, save the 35. Tom Brady comes in on a reasonable 25 million. So, whatever. You save $10 million in cap. You restructure a couple guys. Hey, Adam, we got to tap that contract, but you get to play with Tom Brady. It'll be great. Okay, yes. Here, take it all back. I'll pay you to play for the Vikings. Yeah, I'm running it back if it's Tom Brady, but I got to find a center. I don't know if Tom and Garrett. Although Tom, here's where people, not to turn this into a whole Kirk thing, but like Tom Brady makes offensive linemen better by being a great leader, a great reader pre-snap. He's constantly like texting back and forth with offensive linemen during the week about schemes and different things. So
he can move in the pocket too.
Garrett Bradbury would be better with Tom Brady than he is with Kirk Cousins. Are you blaming Garrett Bradbury on Kirk Cousins? A little bit.
Typical. Yeah. Did you guys hear Score North today? They're talking about Tom Brady playing for the Vikings,
amazing.
And they want to trade Kirk. This is why I don't like those guys.
But thanks for listening every day. Hate listening every day.
Reckless speculation.
All right. Anybody else got one here before we transition? Who gets it? Who doesn't? You guys good?
No, I'm good.
Oh, good.
You good?
Okay.
Okay. So, all right. Let's get to. I'll fire this here, Dex.